Aw, shit, here we go again.
Welcome to the Sloppy Book Club podcast. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Celese, and welcome to season 3, episode 14. And this is another special episode because on this episode, we will have guest author St. Gibson. She is the author of A Dowry of Blood, An Education in Malice, and her upcoming release, Evocation.
We're so freaking excited to talk to her.
Yes, we are.
So I think we're gonna do drinks first.
Yes.
And then we can go ahead and bring her on.
I'm so cool with that.
All right. So we are actually talking about Evocation in this episode, her upcoming release. And there's one character that likes to drink sparkling water. So I grabbed the sparkling water today, and it's clearly Canadian mountain berry. And I've already tasted it because I was afraid I was going to hate it. And it's actually really delicious.
I used to, at the corner store growing up, we used to always like get those.
Yeah, it's so good. I like the ones I've tried before are really gross, but this one's actually really good.
Yeah, Angel is not like a sparkling water kind of person. He doesn't like them. I have a nice little sangria. It's a red wine sangria. Oh, I don't remember the brand. What is it?
I mean, do you really? It's a red wine sangria. It's gonna be delicious, right?
House wine from a can. Again.
Oh, that's a cute can.
It's really cute, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the equivalent of 2 6-ounce glasses of wine. Yum.
Hey, have fun with that.
I'll try.
I also have a little mixed drink because, to be honest, I'm super freaking nervous, and there was no way I was just gonna have a sparkling water.
Sparkling water.
Because my nerves are just. St. Gibson, she's a prize.
Yes, she is. And look, I have her book. And this was the one that I went to Boston to snag it because it was the last one. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get her book because I can't. So you can tell who's a major fan. I feel like last author interview, I was like super fangirling, and I feel like this is gonna be your moment.
Can you tell I'm blushing? All right.
So
okay. So let's just actually bring her on because she's here.
Yay.
Hello. Hi.
You guys hear me?
We're so excited to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Look at your
Yay.
leaves. We have bookshelves. I see dowries. It's great.
Yeah. I actually like ran to Boston to get the last signed one. I was the one who it was me.
That's amazing. They only had like 2 copies, and I was like, I'm gonna sign them anyway because someone is gonna find them. I mean, it's good to only have 2. I mean, people are buying it, but that makes me so happy.
You put it on like your Instagram, and I saw it, and we were in the area. I was like, it was meant to be. I have to try. And I got there, like I made my husband. I was like, race over there. I want it.
They messaged me, and I was like,
another opportunity. I was so excited.
But I do have to fangirl for like one second because I'm obsessed with you. I'm obsessed with your books. I have every single book of yours. And yes, I have read every single one of them. And I'm obsessed. I love you so much. That's it.
I feel very spoiled.
And if it wasn't for Jenny, I wouldn't have known your work because she read A Dowry of Blood, and she was like, Celese, if there's any book recommendation from me right now that you need to read, this is the book. And I read it, and it was amazing.
Yeah, so amazing. All right, so for those of you who don't know, or those of the people out there that don't know you, can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. My name is Saint. I write under St. Gibson, and I primarily write gothic romance and fantasy with elements of romance and horror, which usually ends up being gothic in some way, shape, or another. I'm the author of A Dowry of Blood, and also An Education in Malice, and the forthcoming Evocation. I have been a very busy bee in the last couple of years, but
Yes,
I'm
you
very
have.
happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for being on here.
Yes, we're so happy that you were able to, make time because you're
Mhm.
busy. So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Of course, of course. Thank you for inviting me.
So when did you decide that you wanted to become an author, and what has been your inspiration to keep writing?
A great question. I feel like I fall into this camp of people who have just been like writing for as long as they can remember, kind of like as my primary hobby and mode of expression. I started out trying to draw little comic books about me and my friends when I was like 9 or 10, and then I realized I'm not a very good visual artist, so I just stuck to words. And that was my main hobby, like through high school and stuff. And I studied creative writing in college. I trained as a poet and then as a novelist there. Um, and I never really stopped doing. I'm very, very happy that I get to do this for my job now, and that I get to share my stories with so many people, because I am a really sharing oriented kind of writer. Like, it's one of my favorite ways to connect with people and to help other people maybe feel like their things they're going through emotionally are not unique to them, because fiction and poetry is where I go, and I feel like maybe I'm the only person going through this, and then I'm like, no, someone 45 years ago was having this exact same emotion and they wrote it down, and that's really calming. So I think that's something that really, really drives me, is that love of connection. And I'm also a little bit of a pretty driven person. I like to compete with myself. So each new book is kind of like this new challenge to see if I can do something slightly different and take some new risks. I get bored if I write in the same genre for too long. So I kind of bounce around to my little subgenres and try different things out. And that's where we are right now.
Love
Yeah, it
that.
keeps everything like new because I really enjoy all your different aspects of writing. I really do. So can you talk a little bit about because you were indie and then you got picked up. Can you talk about that journey from going from indie to traditional publishing?
Totally. I love telling this story because I really think it illustrates that, like, I think there are a lot of systemic and interpersonal and financial barriers in place to getting published. But I do think sometimes there are more avenues to creating a career for yourself telling stories than people think. Like, there's indie and trad, but then there's also like back doors and side doors and hybrid. And so I've had some experience with different avenues to this. So as I said, I started as a poet, and I was just like self-publishing a lot of my poetry, like on Tumblr and in small magazines. But I really wanted to tell long form stories, and I wanted to write novels. And we write some novels and every single life day, but eventually I started self-publishing some novellas I had written, and I also found a little bit of a foot in the door doing that, and started to find some audience members who were excited about my stories, and that was really awesome. And I knew I really wanted to, however, try my hand at doing traditional publishing. I really wanted to do my best to get my foot in the door and see how much bigger my reach could be with the support of a publisher behind me. And I also do pretty well with structure and deadlines and guide rails. And it's great to have a publishing team who can be like, hey, big girl, I really need to finish that book.
Let's go.
Like, I think this could work for me, and I want to try it out. So long story short, what happened was I published A Dowry of Blood, which is my queer polyamorous graphic rise retelling with a micro press in the UK called Mixed Publishing. And it was basically just me and the editor building this story, and I had a ton of free reign. And I took a lot of risks and I did a lot of weird things. And I think that was the perfect place for that to happen, because, I didn't feel like I had as much pressure on me as maybe I would have if I had immediately started working with a large publisher. And that came out, I believe, 2020. Yeah, 2020, if I'm correct. And I got really lucky in that it kind of blew up on TikTok. And a lot of people started telling their friends about it and reading it. And it was just like exponential growth. It had been the first couple of months was pretty quiet. And I was like, cool, good job. We did it. Next book. And then people just really started discovering it. And simultaneously to working with that indie press to write A Dowry of Blood, I had been querying agents with another novel, which would become Evocation, which I've been working on for a really long time. And I ended up signing with Sarah Gilbert, who is still my agent. And so the short version of the story is that pretty much simultaneously, A Dowry of Blood got picked up by Orbit, who is my publisher that I love very, very much, and got republished in Trad. And I started working with them on some new projects. And Angry Robot, who is my other publisher who I love very much, picked up the Summoner Circle series, which is the series that Evocation is a part of. So I what am I trying to say? I got very lucky and I worked very hard, but it's also kind of not a common story to have two series running simultaneously. My agent was very good at what they do. And they were really smart in how they negotiated things for me.
It's not super common to have two series running simultaneously with two different traditional publishers, but my agent was like super smart and worked with me and worked with these editors to make this happen. And the editors that I work with are phenomenal and incredibly thoughtful and accommodating and very good at their jobs. And so they have scheduled me out so that I can do those two, simultaneous projects for a couple of years without burning out. So that's how we have managed it thus far.
I was like, I heard one book coming out and then another one. I was like, wait.
I'm a busy bee.
Like, how am I going to keep up?
Yeah. I'm glad for it, but I was just
the great thing about books is they don't go bad. So it'll always be there for you.
That is very, very true.
Now, how do you prepare to write? Like, do you have a favorite snack or drink? Do you listen to music? What's that like for you when you are getting down to write one of your stories?
If it's just like a general writing day for me, which might be like writing on my lunch break or writing in the evenings, and then on the weekends I usually am able to dedicate bigger chunks of time to writing, but I am such a playlist person. Like, I have a playlist for every single project I've ever worked on. And I sometimes even have like particular character playlists if I've been in the world a really long time. Like, I've been working on the Summoner Circle series in some way, shape, or form for I think 7 years now. Wow. So it has like many playlists, many pin boards, Pinterest, all that kind of good stuff. So I do like to kind of have my playlist going. I'm the kind of person who I'll listen to the same like 3 songs over and over and over again, working through a scene. If they fit what's going on, I just kind of go into a trance. And I love to have tea. I have this green tea with peach in it today. Tea or like sparkling water or something like that, and a little sweet snack. And that's usually how I approach it. But I've gotten to the point now where I can write under most conditions, not all, but like I can write on airplanes, I can write on trains and in hotel rooms and things like that I kind of had to train myself to do when I'm outside of the comfortable little bubble of my office or my bedroom. So yeah.
That would drive me nuts because I'm such a like people watcher. So if I was out doing work, I would just distracted all the way around. I'm a huge people watcher.
Same. Me too. My mind just wanders.
Yeah, same here. How do you do with having writer's block? Because I know everyone gets it at one point or another. Like, when you get into that, what do you do to try to like escape from that?
I have found, I've spoken on this before, but I don't mind talking about it again because it's something I really enjoy talking about and I feel pretty strongly about. I feel like when you're experiencing writer's block, it's usually one of a handful of things. One option is that you're not healthy. So you may need more rest, you may be burnt out, you may be fighting depression. Like, I think it's good to kind of take a step back and say, okay, me as the talent, me as the author, as the creative person, am I doing okay? Am I up to doing this? Because sometimes we can just like push because the words aren't coming. And that is like a symptom of our body trying to tell us like, hey, I need a break, or like I need a snack or a nap or anything like that, or maybe time away from the project. So I always want to point out that that could be an option. But for me, it's usually a symptom of I don't know exactly what comes next. That is my number one thing that will make me just stare at a page and get frustrated. And just that's kind of when you get that like almost sense of panic of being like, well, I have to write something, like especially when you're in my position where like you're on deadline for people that are expecting it. I'm like, I can't just stare at this for 3 weeks. Like I have to make some progress. But I'm a little bit more of an intuitive writer and a little bit more of a pantser. But I have learned as I've been doing this for I think 5 or 6 years now, is that structure does really help me. So one of my things that I do if I'm feeling stuck on a scene is I'll be like, I know what happens. And I'm like, no, you actually don't. You have a vague idea of how you want this scene to feel, but that is not the same as knowing like, they're in this room, this line of dialogue happens, and then we cut to this place and make sure you tie in this thread. And sometimes just making a bulleted list of like the 6 things I want to happen in a chapter really, really helps me. And it also helps me realize that I didn't know as much about what was happening as I thought. So I feel like writer's block is usually a symptom of either you're too tired or you're not doing well, or you just kind of don't have a strong idea of what you're doing, because things like writing speed, like words per minute, and plotting and outlining in a way that feels good to you, those things can be taught and learned. They're like muscles you build and strengthen, but it's sometimes a lot harder to strengthen just like the vague ambient knowledge of what happens next, especially if you're someone like me who figures things out as they write. A lot of times it is, but I have learned that as well, is staring at the page often doesn't help me if I'm feeling good and I have the time to do it and I just can't get the words out, because I will figure out what I'm trying to say by writing. So any words I can get down kind of help the next words come, even if it takes me, a couple hours to get through like 300 words. That's 300 words I didn't have before. And I bet you after that, I have a much better sense of what I'm doing next.
That's awesome. That's such a good way to explain it. Like that's just, it's like a symptom of something. Take a step back and like try to figure it out.
Yeah, it could just like that break.
Yes, I will add one more thing. I think it's important in these conversations to remember sometimes too, just like your creative well runs dry. Like that totally can happen, especially if you write a lot or if you write more days than not. That well can be depleted and it will always replenish itself with time and with care. But yeah, sometimes I reach the bottom of the well and I'm like, I love this project. I know I do logically. I know I have a good sense of what I'm doing. I'm excited to share this with people. However, I just am out of words. And so when that happens, typically taking a little bit of a break for a couple days or a couple weeks, whatever it takes, and reading some books or listening to an audiobook or watching a show or an old movie I like or a musical, anything that kind of is me taking in stories instead of trying to output them, that helps a lot too.
And that leads into my next question, because I was going to ask, what do you like to do when you're not writing? Like, what is your escape, those hobbies? So like you said, shows and movies and things like that. Is there anything in particular that you watch on a daily, or like your comfort show to kind of escape from your world?
It's so important as a working artist to have things outside of your art that you do that are not monetized and that are not available for public consumption and scrutiny. Like I have learned that the hard way. It's really, really important. So some of the hobbies that I enjoy is I like to hand embroider. I haven't done that in a while. I should do that. It's getting warm out. I want to do some flowers. I like to do hand embroidery. I really like to like FaceTime my friends or like write letters to my friends. I'm very, very social, or go out with them in person. And I like to try new restaurants and I like to explore the city that I'm in. So like getting out of the house, being social as an extrovert, that really does energize me and makes me, want to connect with people more in different ways. As far as shows, I'm much more of a movie person. I oftentimes, fun fact, do not have the patience for the amount of hours it takes to finish a series or to finish a very long book. But one of my challenges for myself this year is to be more patient and to try some series that I've been putting off and to try reading some longer books I've been putting off. But shows that I love and that I watch religiously are Bridgerton and House of the Dragon. I love them. I am like ready for the new seasons. I love AMC's Interview with a Vampire. Wow, of course, I love that. And this is an older one, but one of my favorite shows that I probably rewatch once a year is Twin Peaks. Like it's just really smart and weird and enjoyable in a way that nothing else quite feels like David Lynch. So like when I get that Twin Peaks craving, only Twin Peaks will do. So those are some of my favorite things to watch. And I really love foreign films. I love like golden age of Hollywood movies. And I also love musicals. And those are kind of some things that maybe like my partner or my friends aren't as into, but I really like that because those are like special things I do with myself that really refill the well. Like I'll watch like The Phantom of the Opera for the millionth time, or I'll watch In the Mood for Love, which is one of my favorite foreign language films. And that's almost like going on a date with myself. Like it's a fun activity that I look forward to, that I use as a treat, that I know is something that I get to do while enjoying my own company. And sometimes I find that those solitary activities as well, as much as the more social activities, are really good for refilling the well.
I love that. Having dates for yourself. Like
it's important.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah. So if you weren't an author, what career do you think that you would have had? What would you have gone for?
It's very funny because I have tried to do so many different kinds of things. And I've come very close to doing different kinds of things. And I really do feel like through trial and error that being an author is like my highest good. But I might be a priest, because the last thing I did before I decided to wholeheartedly pursue being an author was I went to divinity school and I trained for 2 years to be an Episcopal minister.
Wow. Is that where you got your inspiration from, An Education of Malice?
I was just about to ask that too, because there was so much of that in that book. So
yes, Laura wants to be an Episcopal priest, just like I did. Awesome. And I have a lot of respect for that career and that calling. I'm good friends with people who did choose to go down that path in their own traditions and become religious leaders. But I truly I get burned out pretty easy. I have trouble with good boundaries with people sometimes. I'm pretty emotional. So like the amount of growing that I would have had to do to be successful at that career was like a very big gap. I also went to divinity school pretty young. A lot of people go like in their 40s, and I was like 23 being like, give me the power. I'm really glad I did it. I would never go back in time and undo that, but I think this is really what I want to be doing. And I actually, if I can tell a fun, quick story about this, I'm not Catholic. I'm Episcopalian, but I've only been to Catholic confession one time, kind of out of curiosity, because I was listening to my friend who is Catholic give like a talk in a church, and her priest was there hanging out to support her. And after she was done, he was like, hey, I'm doing open confession, and anyone is curious, like this is a good time to try it out. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. I like religion, whatever, let's see how this feels. And I sat down and he talked me through it, and it was very casual. He was very friendly. It was not like intense, like shame, it was just kind of like, what do you feel like talking about? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not actually going to become a priest. I feel like maybe I'm just going to not do that. And I feel kind of guilty. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I really want to tell stories. I really want to write. And I've been writing for years and I just can't stop doing it. And I think I want to kind of drop everything and go in that direction. And he said, okay, well, it sounds like you've been given this gift. And I think what you should do for your penance, which is in confession, they usually ask you to do some gesture of good faith to show that your behavior has changed. He was like, I'm going to ask you to go share those stories with other people, because it sounds like that's what you're supposed to be doing. So, and that was like almost at the end of my time in divinity school. And I was like crying, all this kind of stuff. It's a very positive memory. Shout out to that man. I don't know who he was, but he made a good impression. So all that to say, it all comes full circle. It was a very intentional choice to not go in that direction, but I came pretty close.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were meant to take that route there.
I think so too. I love what I learned. I love learning about people and learning about their relationships to whatever spirituality means to them, and helping them, heal and find connection and community. But I feel very blessed because I do feel like I get to do that in some small way through sharing books with people that I hope are also encouraging in a different way.
Yeah,
That's cool.
awesome.
All right. So can you tell us what Evocation is about to our listeners? Let's get into it. Jenny is excited about it. She was able to read it already. So what can you tell us about this new book coming out for you?
Yes. Evocation kickstarts a brand new urban fantasy romance 4-book series from me. Lots of books in this series if you like this world. And it is about the lives and loves of a group of occultists living in modern day Boston. So it follows David, who is a high-powered lawyer by day, psychic medium by night, who is kind of an heir to this occult fortune that he realizes that one of his family members has made a deal with the devil, and the devil is now coming to collect by taking David's soul. And David has no idea what to do. And so he turns to the only person he can trust to ask for help, which is his ex-boyfriend and magical rival, Reese, and Reese's new wife, who is an astrologer, Moira. And the three of them get a little bit too close for comfort as they're trying to solve this problem. But love is hard. Talking about your feelings is hard. Sometimes, trying to solve a demon problem is easier. So we all cope in different ways.
I feel like this whole book was just like a huge exploration of love and relationship. I felt like I was watching them just pour themselves open, sort of.
That is so wonderful. That's what I want.
I absolutely loved it. It was how'd you come up with this plot? It was just so beautiful.
This one is, it's kind of hard to explain because I feel so close to the story. Like a lot of my other work, I also feel very close to and very proud of, but I think because I've been working on this one for so long, it's kind of hard to put a finger on the moment it started. But I think this series really is me. First of all, it's me doing sexy, splashy, snarky urban fantasy, which I love, and I don't get to do all the time because a lot of my other work is a little bit more darker or more historical or more lyrical, and Evocation has a lot more sense of playfulness and flirtatiousness in it, which makes it really fun to write. So I think I kind of go back to that as a palate cleanser a lot. But it is also me kind of talking out loud about exactly what you said about what I think love means and the different shapes that love can take, whether that's romantic, platonic, familial, sexual, or an overlapping boundary of any combination of those. And I love, as you hear me talk about, divinity school for 5 minutes, I'm really interested in spirituality, and there are so many cool, fascinating, living magical traditions in the world and in America that I was just learning about because I have kind of a bottomless appetite to learn about them as someone who's interested in magic herself. And I was like, I got to put this into a book. So it is just kind of me exploring all the things that are really interesting to me in a series of books. And that series of books is tied together with this through thread of each book focuses on a different member of this really interconnected community. And that book is when that member has to learn a really big magical lesson and also learn a really big, have a big romance. So that's kind of the theme that ties them all together.
That's awesome. I'm excited for that.
I have a question with that because so are they going to be standalone but with in a same world series? So it's a series, but they can also be standalones?
I would say for this one, you should probably read them in order. It's
okay.
Most of all the same characters are in all the books, and their journeys and relationships and the magical elements build on each other. But it feels probably I always say it's like my soapy CW TV show. It's
Okay.
like, yes, you can watch an episode of Supernatural with no context and you will enjoy it because to a certain extent, it's a monster of the week story, but it's probably going to be that much better if you've watched the seasons leading up to it. So I would suggest reading them
Okay.
more.
I love that how you said that because we're supernatural watchers here.
Yes.
Because it's so true. Like it's usually a monster of the week kind of thing, but it
Yeah.
is so much better when you start from beginning to end. So I love that. Now, how much does your draft change or your outline change from when you complete the story? Because you said that you've been working on this for so long.
Yeah.
How much of it has changed? Was it like a character that you thought would be the lead and then you're like, no, I'm hearing a different character more right now. So
Mhm.
your story kind of shifts. Did that happen
Yeah.
with this book?
That one did with this series in particular, because not to throw another book title name at you, but the first thing I indie published was a very short, like 25,000 word novella about the three characters that are the most important that we follow through the series that became the Summoner Circle series. And I was just kind of playing around with some ideas and I really liked some of the character stuff I was doing. I just couldn't get them out of my head. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just experiment with writing more. Maybe I'll write a follow-up and it just turned into like this series that just didn't end. But it is interesting because David, who is the lead character of Evocation, it's, there's different POVs, but it's really his book, his journey, his moment. He was just an antagonist who walked on stage for like 3 chapters in Odd Spirits. Like he kind of comes in, is an asshole, does some psychic stuff, and then leaves and slams the door behind him. And there was not a lot of depth to him, and arguably not as much depth to Reese or Moira either. But I was really compelled by him. And the more time I spent working on the character, I was like, this would be such a cool lens to look at this world through, to kind of invite people in. And I got to work with some archetypes I really wanted to. So that is how that happened. In general, I would say it usually takes me an average of maybe 2 years from first writing the first word to like sharing the book, whether that's indie or trad. That's kind of the schedule I'm on right now. And I would say maybe like 1 year of that is really spent like heavily in the material, because I really need time to take breaks to think and to work through plot holes. Because I said I kind of figure it out as I go, and then I have to go back to the beginning, rewrite up until the point where I figured it out, go back, rewrite. So that's kind of the process I found that works best for me. But that's not always true. I wrote the original draft of Dowry Blood in 6 months and not much changed.
Wow.
It was the pandemic and I didn't have a lot going on.
I think that's
Well,
where like a lot of us started reading again too, was because of the pandemic. So it brought back books in general, which is amazing.
agreed. And so along the lines of that, like how many times it changed, has it always been set in Boston? Because we're from
Yes.
Massachusetts and we love that you write Massachusetts. We
Yes.
absolutely love that.
I love the city of Boston for all of her faults. I love that city. It was where I went on my first anniversary with the person who then became my fiance. And we loved it so much. And I just couldn't stay away. And me and him ended up moving into the city, and we lived in Boston for 4 years. So I did a lot of the writing on the series and a lot of the planning on the series when I was actually living in the city and visiting the neighborhoods and the restaurants and the shops and stuff that are mentioned in the book. Some of them are made up, but a lot of them are actual real places. So that was really fun. Boston has it's got character.
And you really like in this book, you could feel Boston for sure.
Thank you.
I could definitely feel it. I can't wait for Celeste to read it because it's actually really nice. So can you tell us who was your easiest and most difficult character to write in this story?
Yes. Ooh, that's a
And
good
the
question.
toughie.
Easiest one was probably David, because he just had such a strong personality. And David is also very similar to me in some unexpected ways. So is Moira, so are a lot of people in that book, honestly. But I was pulling from things about myself that I either really liked or really didn't like. So it made it a little bit easier to set the parameters of what made sense for this character, because I was kind of exploring things I had experience with. And he's also just kind of larger than life. Like, he's very fun to write. Like, he is, very, very self-absorbed and very performative and has to be like the golden boy in the spotlight all the time, but he really does have a heart of gold if you can like dig and get to it. And that is just a really gratifying, fun little bit of friction to write. So I think how much fun it was made writing him easier. And I had a pretty clear idea of where I wanted that character to go when I started writing his book. So I wasn't like operating in the dark. And then there are some other characters in Evocation that went through some big overhauls and changes, but Reese and Moira are sometimes a little bit challenging. Like, I kind of know them as well as I know the back of my hand sometimes, but they also surprise me. And they are kind of a odd couple. Like, they're kind of polar opposites in a lot of ways, but they're really devoted to each other and love each other. And so I spent a lot of time like rewriting some of their scenes and digging deeper into their characters beyond the surface to kind of get into the mind of the marriage. Like, when you're talking about people who have made this commitment and been together for a while, actually not that long, they've been together a couple of years in this book, but who know each other in that way, it's almost like the marriage is a character in itself that you kind of have to negotiate and learn about. And they go through a lot of growth and change as well. And I didn't want to speed run that growth, because then you run out of room. But I also didn't want to pull my punches and not make them uncomfortable so they wouldn't grow. And David was just doing his thing. So he was easy.
Love David. I felt like David was like, slowly you were like pulling threads away from him. Like, slowly throughout the book, I was like, oh my God. I can't even talk, like, I can't talk about it because I don't want to spoil it.
Thank you. The one thing I will say that I don't think is a spoiler with this character that was the most gratifying to write, and something that just felt really true to myself and to this story, is having a character who is allowed to be bombastic and loud and a little bit demanding and self-centered and arrogant and all these kind of really fun, kind of sexy, but a little bit more difficult personality traits. Like, allowing them to do that, but also really holding them accountable for their actions, and through the narrative, really seeing them grow and learn how to make space for other people and to make space for love and to be more gracious and to be more thoughtful was really fun, because I think sometimes it's not necessarily a redemption arc. He's not like a villain, but I think sometimes when you see a lot of change in a character, you can sometimes lose those things that made them so fun in their badness. And I really tried with David to let him still have fun while being like, you have to apologize to people. You can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So if you can spend the day with one of your characters from this book, who would it be? Who would you choose?
Moira. She's the best.
The bomb. She is the bomb.
Love her. I think she is the most, I think she'd be one of the people who's the most fun to be around, and she would also be probably the best friend in the story. And she has really cool hobbies, and I think that's fun. And we would probably like go to a farmer's market and then go shopping and then get tea, and it'd be nice.
Yes,
I need to meet her.
I
can't wait.
Yes, I love that. So you said this was a series.
Yes.
Are you able to tell us who the next book is about, or is that too big of a spoiler, you think? Or you just tell us what's coming up next for you.
I can tell you who the next book is about. I can't tell you the title yet, but the next book, book 2 in the Summoner Circle series, is Reese's book.
Okay.
Look at Betty.
Okay.
It's a lot of sad, bisexual, lapsed Catholic angst. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, tell me more.
For me. I love that for me.
Like, I can't wait.
Of course, it's a very angsty book. It's Reese, but it's really enjoyable. I'm actually revising it right now. I'm doing some of the big overhauling that I'll need to do to make it work. But there's some really good material, and I'm super excited to be able to share it soon.
Awesome.
Oh my God. Jenny is just like, okay, I got what I wanted. She can't
Yes, I
wait.
did.
What is
Oh,
one
God.
book you will always recommend?
I have like 3 or 4 that I rotate on depending on the person.
Give,
But
Wait,
give it to
let's get
us.
our pens. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
give it to us.
I feel like I'm in the market for a new book to be obsessed with, because I've been obsessed with the same ones for a while, but I think that's just a testament to how good they are. I love The Secret History. I recommend it often.
So a lot of people have recommended that one to me because I read If We Were Villains, and they were like, if you love that, you're gonna love.
If you
Secret
liked If We Were Villains, definitely Secret History. Secret History is like the cornerstone text of dark academia, but it's just like, it is so good. Like, it, every time I reread it, I'm like, yeah, that lives up to the hype. Like, I'm sorry, I like what I like. I also really love, of course, not everything is falling out of my head. I'm looking at my books now. I'm gonna say The Secret History now.
question.
Oh, the other, it's a series, but I always recommend The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater.
Oh, okay.
I love
I actually have that, and I've never read it.
It's phenomenal. It's gorgeous. The character work and the prose is stunning. And just like the way Maggie writes, like atmosphere and emotion is really next level. It's YA, and I don't read a ton of YA, but it's my favorite series ever. So that should tell you how good it is.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you what's your favorite genre to read, and I'm not even gonna bother because I already know. You love academia, you love vampires.
I do. And I just read a lot of I also read a lot of category romance. I love romance. So I read like historical romance, erotic romance, fantasy romance, like monster romance, all kinds of things. But if it has romance in it, I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lead. I like romance, but it's more like the monster and fantasy. I don't really do like contemporary romance. That's more
Totally,
silly.
yeah.
Oh, I love all romance, from the highs to the lows to the extremes to the monsters to the tales. Like, I love it all.
I love it.
I like romance in my books, but usually the genre starts different.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything like coming up this year that you want to talk about?
I'm trying to remember what I'm allowed to talk about. Pre-order Evocation. It comes out on May 28th. If you're listening, there's still time. And if you like it, there's going to be like all these other books in the series. So you should try it out. And then in 2025, so we're early, but I will mention it. In 2025, I have a start of a trilogy coming out with Orbit called Savage Blooms. And that is a gothic, erotic, folklore romance, polyamorous, set in modern day Scotland with hot, evil, sexy fairies.
We're in.
We want it all. We can't wait.
I will say, like, the way I'm trying to pitch these, because when you have multiple things going on, I try to like distinguish them from each other so people don't get confused. It's like, if you want like a more of a popcorn experience that is like, you're gonna feel your heartstrings get tugged on, but you're mostly having fun. It's mostly a sexy romp with a lot of magic, Evocation. But if you read Dowry of Blood and you were like, I like the pain, I like the gothic angst and the anguish, go read Savage Blooms when it's out. That's what I have to offer.
Can't wait.
We're just gonna eat them both. Like, we're gonna devour both series. Like, they both sound so good. So we're hoping our listeners give them a try, because we love your writing. It's exceptional. It's, it's different genres, but they all have such a great essence to them that it's so enjoyable. So I'm excited. I can't wait until the release of Evocation, because Jenny has been like smiling ear to ear, and she's just like, she loves it. So I know I'm gonna enjoy it.
I like,
if you would have
the good word.
If you would have saw the way I screamed when I got an email that I was getting that damn arc, I was like over the moon for weeks.
For weeks.
You got one of the beautiful foiled ones too.
I'm
stunningly gorgeous.
So amazing. So amazing. I can't wait. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
We
you for
really appreciate it. We're very excited.
And we want to just thank you again. This has been an amazing chat with you, and we hope you enjoyed your time with us.
I did.
So so thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You guys take
Can't
care.
wait for the release.
Oh, thank you. Take care and have a great night.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.